Assalamu alaikum. This is Obaid Rahman here, and I'm excited to be a part of Humans of Telecom today.
Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to Humans of Telecom, the Unplugged podcast. This is your host Anurag Aggarwal, Chief Growth Officer at Globe Teleservices. For those tuning in for the first time, this podcast takes you behind the scenes of the fast paced world of telecom and showcases the human side of some of the most well known individuals within the space. And today, we definitely feature an individual who is extremely well known and very popular in the industry. I literally find him to be what I'd call a towering personality, a very sharp dresser, and somebody who comes with a wealth of experience, having worked across multiple carriers worldwide, and today is the leader of one such large carrier group. So please join me in welcoming Obaid Rahman, Head of Wholesale at Axiata Group. Obaid, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this journey. We'd love to hear more about you. Which part of the world do you belong to? And from where are you joining this podcast today?
Thank you, Anurag, for having me on this podcast today. I'm originally from Pakistan, but naturalized in the UK now, and today I'm calling from Malaysia.
Wonderful. So, I'm from India and you are literally my neighbor from there. So, and so does UK have such strong ties with India given history. So, I think you and I have a strong connection here already.
True, we have strong ties, and then we have some kind of animosity on the cricket pitch as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's actually the best form of animosity that can arise, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Wonderful. So, Obaid, I know that you've been there in the industry for a long time, but I'm sure there are so many more facets about you. So, can you tell us a little more about your background? I know you started in Pakistan, that's your roots, but how has your journey been like, and how have you reached where you are today? What has the entire journey been for you?
So, Anurag, I'll start from the beginning. Going back to my roots, I grew up in a household full of petrol heads and auto buffs. So, my dad was an automobile engineer. My uncles were, auto enthusiasts. So, I knew that my destiny and my journey would be more towards automobiles, cars, and all that stuff. And that's where I started my journey, actually. My first job was with Honda Motor Company. And I was there for about a year, and I thought that, the work is cut out. Probably I'm going to spend some good years there in that sector. And lo and behold, GSM operations came into Pakistan at that point in time. And I was actually poached to basically join them. And I still remember categorically that day when I went for an interview half-heartedly because I didn't want to leave the automobile industry, but I was offered a remuneration package that was thrice what I was making. So I threw in the towel and I jumped ship. So that's how it came into telecoms first of all. And since then, it's been a long, winding journey. 25, 26 years now. I have done about four continents. I've lived and worked within the telecom sector in about 11 different countries. My journey has been with four distinct groups. I started off with Oriscom, which is like we are now. Moved on to Cable and Wireless, then Uridu Group, and now Axiata.
Wonderful. So, basically, you were literally poached and pulled into the fancy world of telecom.
Yeah, it was unplanned, but no looking back. Once I came in, I kind of fell in love with the technology, with the pace of the way things were evolving at that point in time until now. So it's been an exciting ride thus far.
Wonderful. And within this exciting ride, Obaid, I'm sure there have been many impactful moments. But if I ask you to tell our listeners at least one or two major memorable or impactful moments in your journey, what would they be?
So, Anurag, the whole journey has been quite impactful, when I reflect back, because especially within the wholesale sector, working in emerging markets or developed markets, either way, you're connecting the unconnected, you're narrowing the digital divide. So, it's all meaningful work that we all do and I've been doing. But I think, the most impactful things that I've done in my career are kind of two events. One was launching services in Yemen at a time when things were very tumultuous over there. So that really, reflects well with me. And the second was launching, services or transforming a network that was quite old school in the Caribbean. So, transforming it from CDMA or TDMA actually to GSM. So, that actually brought in a big impact within the community and the society over there. So, these are two events that I categorically remember.
Yeah, very true. And I think these are been impactful moments for the world at large, when technologies have changed and transitioned into better ones. So, yep, I can totally imagine. So, moving on, Obaid, to more of the human side, let's put the telecom aside and let's talk a little bit more about Obaid. So, while we all know you in the industry, I literally said you're like the towering personality, given your height. What is your height exactly? I'd love to know that firstly.
I'm just, I think, a couple of centimeters shy of 6 feet.
But to me, you look like a 6'2", 6'3", I guess. Okay, so given that we all know so much about you, but still, if there is one thing which is shocking or unknown for our listeners about Ubaid, what would that be?
Well, something I am, I keep it under the wraps, but, since you ask, and I'm not proud of it, I would say, but like I'm big into cigars, and I've kept myself, anonymous, but I'm known as an influencer. I'm known as a subject matter expert. I have an affinity, and especially given the time I spent in the Caribbean, I developed an affinity with the country, which is Cuba, but this product as well. So this is something that not that many people in the industry know about me.
But I can definitely say it's not something which many people would find shocking, to be honest. I think I remember seeing your pictures with cigars often as well. And I think, I mean, while this is something which you might not have officially shared with the world, and maybe the term influencer might be something which one wouldn't have expected. But yes, for sure, I've seen you as somebody who's quite fond of his cigars. So, yep, I can totally
Yeah.
imagine that.
So that's one thing, but the other element that probably people don't know about me is that when I was a kid, I was aspiring to become a racing driver, but obviously had my eyes on Formula One eventually. But as you aptly picked up, given my size and structure, I wouldn't fit in. So I moved away. I started my rallying career. So I was fairly successful in that, and this is pre-telecom days. So that's something that I still continue to do. Passionate about that. I follow rigorously. I've got three daughters, and they follow the whole motorsport discipline as well. And probably aspiration is that one of them can become one of the rally drivers. So that's something that I keep on doing on the sides.
Wonderful. That's quite interesting. So I guess your love for the auto sector remains in some or the other shape and form.
Yeah, obviously, as I said earlier, it doesn't fade away. That's something that's there. And again, I found a love and passion for telecoms in itself. And, this passion now kind of, professional passion fuels my and funds my personal passion. So I think, it's the right mix.
Wonderful. So I guess, the autos being a passion for you is something which will remain forever. And whether it's in the form of working in the auto sector or following the Formula One, I think you'll always be closely associated with the sector. And I think maybe you can try to find some way of tying up with a large cigar brand and a large F1 company. And I think your life is sorted.
Yeah, we had a few kind of flirtation with Formula One in shape of some sponsorships that we've done in the past, or not we actually, my previous employer. So got some proximity to that discipline. But talking about your point earlier about kind of going into that cigars, I can't say, but about auto, I'm excited because given what we're seeing in the industry, connected cars, IoT, telemetry, it's converging. So and obviously you see so many verticals being set up, especially around connected cars. So you never know. Probably that's what my destiny is eventually.
Awesome. And we look forward to you fulfilling your destiny in every shape and form possible.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So, Obaid, while you've spoken so much about what charges you and what are your passions, but if there is something which Obaid does to unwind and recharge himself, what would that be?
So Anurag, I don't want to sound repetitive, but obviously, to recharge, obviously, driving and smoking cigars, that's there. And actually, forgot to mention earlier, I have or I had set up a club, a non-commercial club called Autos and Habanos back in my days in Qatar, and that was primarily to bring in like-minded people. So that was kind of my go-to thing to basically wind down. And then it's been a very successful club. It has chapters in about 6 countries now, obviously including Malaysia, where I am. But behind this, obviously, family is in the epicenter. As I said, my wife, my daughters, apart from cigars, they kind of enjoy the whole thing as well. But when it comes to recharging, it's my family. Traveling with them, spending time with them, that really keeps me going and recharges.
Awesome. That's something which will always remain, family and how they will play such a crucial role in our lives.
Absolutely.
All right, so moving on. So we are gonna start a set of two questions where we play some games. So the first one is that I'm gonna put up 5 words to you, Ovid, and for each one, I'd love to hear the first thought that comes to your mind. So as I tell all my guests that be spontaneous, be human, and we look
Mm.
forward to hearing your thoughts. So are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Awesome. So the first one is telecom.
Transformation,
Okay. Motivation.
making a change,
All right. The third one you've touched upon, but I'll ask again. Family.
good times.
Absolutely good times. In India, we have this brand called Kingfisher. It is called the King of Good Times. And somehow,
Yeah.
when I look at you, you seem to
Yeah.
really, epitomize that entire tagline so well, the King of Good Times.
Exactly. I think that's my mantra. I'm sorry I'm going off on the tangent, Anurag, but it's that cliche that work hard and play hard. So yes, like we all have worked really hard to get to where we are, to bring the whole sector and industry to where it is. So we
Right.
have the right to play as well, right?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. All right. The fourth one is career.
Mm. Career for me is constant learning, Anurag.
All right. And the last one, where we are today, podcast.
Humans of Telecom, without a doubt.
Thank you so much for that. And I really hope that through this episode, when you get into your next conference, because you're out there, out and about everywhere. So I do hope that people are able to hear this podcast and reach out to you and have new conversations beyond the ones which they already have with you related to work and business.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome. So, Babe, the our next game is where I ask you to say three statements to us. Two of them have to be truths. One of them has to be a lie, and I'll try and
Mm.
guess which one is the lie. So, is that something that you have for us today?
Yeah. So I've put on three statements already. So first one is I've never worked at a restaurant. Very simple.
Okay.
Second is I've had dinner with John Major, the British Prime Minister.
All right.
And third one is I was held at gunpoint by security forces at an airport.
Okay. So I'll tell you what, knowing your diverse and fascinating personality, I'm sure the second and the third one are truths. You've had a meal with John Major, and
Yeah.
it's quite possible you've been held at gunpoint. And I have a feeling you have worked at a restaurant. So the first one is a lie. Am I right?
Yeah. So, like, just to be clear, so that, there is no ambiguity, I wasn't carrying anything wrong at the airport. It
Uh huh.
was, they kind of mistook me for someone else, right? And I had to go through that trauma of, being held at gunpoint. taken to a side room and then interrogated for about half an hour. So that's something that I always remember.
Oh my God.
And yes, I've worked at a restaurant, and again, like I intentionally put it in here because this was back in the days I was a teenager, and again, goes back to my passion. I'd gone to Germany on a student exchange program to do my automobile engineering. But then, I got homesick, young teenager. So, I threw in the towel and came back. But during that time, I did work at the pizzeria over there in Germany. And then that it built character for me as well. It was good learning.
Wonderful. And what about the second statement? How was it like meeting John Major? What brought about that situation?
It was a keynote speech by him. And after that, obviously sat down, had it, coincidentally, I was placed on the same table as him. So it was quite enlightening. But, and I think it will resonate well with you. In his keynote speech, he said that, and this is, I think, 2000, no, not 2000, 1998 it was. So he said, like, going forward, there are so many geopolitical changes. Economies are basically shifting, from west to the east. But, there are three highs that you should be wary of. And he said, first is Shanghai, second is Dubai, and the third is Mumbai, right? Still remember
Okay,
that.
that's interesting. All right. So, and by the way, where were you held at gunpoint? Which airport was that?
This was San Francisco. Um,
Oh,
I was at that point in time, I was working in New Zealand, and my family was in London. So I would basically shuttle back and forth every fourth week. Literally, Anurag, it used to be a 36-hour journey door to door for me. And typically, I would take flights from London to
right.
Dubai, and from Dubai, straight into Australia and then New Zealand. That time around, I don't know, I thought that it's the same journey from the other side. Let's go
Right.
westwards. So I landed at San Francisco, and I had to go through a security check given the ethnicity, which was normal. Knew that. And but when I got to, I cleared the immigration, and I was rushing in because I was about to miss my next flight. So I had to get my stuff collected, and if you know that you have to just recheck your baggage.
Right.
So I was rushing through customs, and I was in a hurry, and these customs officials were basically waiting for someone else to pass through, right? And they
Okay.
thought the reason I'm running through is because trying to just run past by them was because I'm that guy. And so they kind of stopped me, and I was kind of startled. So a little bit of a push, and next thing I know, they've called in the forces, right? So and then obviously I missed my flight, and then they had to just go through the whole check again on me. So, but yeah, that was. I've traveled across the globe. I've had other incidents as well. We can talk about it sometime later. But this one, always stands out.
Wow, that does seem quite a lot. And now that you've further told more, so firstly, being held at gunpoint by any security is intimidating. And the US security for sure, I mean, having visited the US thankfully a couple of times, I've seen that, the paranoia which often exists out there. So I can totally imagine that entire situation, or rather, I can't even imagine. I'm sure it's too shocking to even imagine vividly. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's something which many of our listeners might come to you later. So, I mean, if somebody comes to you and talks to you more about it, you know for sure that they've heard the podcast.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, like since then, no issues. Like, it's been what? God knows, 20 plus years since that happened.
Right.
And, but, I think it was, to be fair to them as well, it was sensitivity around certain events that had happened at that point in time as well. So, yeah, since then, things have been okay. We go to ITW every year. They're quite welcoming. So, no issues there.
Wonderful. And I do hope and pray it remains like that.
Yeah.
All right. And Ubaid, in the midst of all your travels and cigars and automobiles, by any chance, Do you get any time to read or watch movies? And if yes, is there any which is your favorite and you can share with us?
Yeah, Anurag, I'm an avid reader. I don't read fiction or I don't follow fiction. I basically normally follow or I read about, true events, real life events. And I watch, similar movie as well. So my wife finds me very boring, when it comes to watching movies and everything. But, one movie that really stands out for me is Rush. It's about a rivalry in Formula One back in the days. So, but it's not about Formula One only. That whole movie. So it's not a story. It's like based on true events that happened. So the rivalries between two big names from the past, James Hunt and Nicky Lauda, similar to what you see between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen nowadays. But that whole movie culminates patience, leadership, how to be sensitive, how to teamwork. So there's so many lessons in there, strategic thinking as well. So that's something like I can keep watching. I've watched it quite many times. Again, there are lessons to be learned out of it. And again, there is one more lesson in there as, when is the right time to basically throw in the towel? Because, there are differing views about, why did Nicky Lauda leave Formula One circus altogether? He left it for his family because, he had this accident back in Germany in those days. And then he decided that, eventually he's going to give up. And he did, right? And people call him that he was kind of scared of the whole thing. He was not. He wasn't scared. He was just scared, not scared. He was worried about it for his family. So that's another lesson in there, like that. So that's one movie that really, just sticks out for me.
Wonderful. And I'm sure that now that you mentioned it, so many of our listeners will also maybe go out there and try to watch Rush. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Highly recommended. You should watch it as well.
Absolutely, will do. All right, and with that, while we are enjoying the stories of gunpoints and automobiles and cigars, we've sadly reached the final section, the sign off section. So, two quick questions here. So, firstly, Ubaid, if somebody wants to hear more about your travel stories and some of your other exotic experiences, what is the best way to reach out to you, and maybe which are some of the conferences you're attending in the coming weeks and months where people can meet you?
Look, in terms of reaching out, open door, like, people know me. I'm on LinkedIn. Obviously, I'm going to be on your podcast as well. So they can use any communication channel to basically reach out. I'm always, happy to basically sit down and have a chat. In terms of events, like I do all the capacity regional events and ITW. So these are my main go-to ones. I think the next one would be Capacity Europe in London. So hope to see everyone over there then.
Wonderful. So, if anybody wants to hear what more happened in the entire gunpoint incident, I'm sure there are some stuff which Obaid has still very smartly kept out. So, you can reach out to him one on one and get to hear more about it.
Yeah, like we have a clandestine mini cigar club of telecoms as well. So it's not only me. There are a few other lads as well within the sector who are big aficionados. So what we do is we at least tend to meet on the last day of the event and just sit down. So if someone, if there are other aficionados out there who would like to join us or even just have a chat, happy to have them over.
Wonderful. So, Obaid, there is yet another facet about you. And for all our listeners here, you can always reach out to him about the Clandestine Cigar Club as well. So, with that, Obaid, we come to a final question, our signature question. What does being human mean to you? What sort of a human being would you want the world to remember you as?
Hmm. So, Anurag, in terms of what sort of human being I would like to be or I want to be, I'll just go back to my early days, and giving example of my father, who passed away early this year. he led a full life. Again, very successful in his career. But at one stage, he decided to basically lean more towards philanthropy, and he started working with, or he actually started an organization, or the chapter of that organization in Pakistan for special children. So I'm sure the listeners would know there is this organization that was started by John F. Kennedy's sister called Special Olympics. So he started Special Olympics Pakistan. And I have volunteered myself as well. But over a course of 30 years, the selfless, relentless kind of work that he had done to basically bring smile onto these kids' faces, that humbled me a lot, especially again, recently, as I said, when he passed away, I went for his funeral. The kind of kids I saw were there who had shown up, that was a humbling experience. But that whole journey that I saw him, and actually my mother as well, who's passed away too now, it has been, quite moving for me. And that's where I'm not there yet. And again, my family and my the wider family keeps on asking me to do more. I do whatever I can do, but I think as a human being, I would like to do more on that, which I don't have time at this point in time. So going forward, probably that's something that I would like to do. So, in terms of how I want to be remembered, again, Anurag, I recently turned 50, and it was so humbling for me, again, personally, that, like, I had friends who flew in from halfway across the globe to come and join me, for the celebration. My wife had arranged a party for me over here, and they did ask me, like, what's next for you? And for me, first thing first, reflecting back my 50 years of my life, I've kind of done quite many things in telecoms. I've made a mark by being on this podcast, tells a lot as well, and thanks to you, Anurag. As I said, like, I've done my thing in cigars as well. I basically fulfilled my passion. So there's nothing, and I don't want to be remembered by these things. I want to be remembered as a human being who had a personal touch and who had made a difference in someone's life. That's something that I really need to focus upon going forward, and that's where me and my wife think that, what can we do together? We do it, but it's a drop in the ocean at this point in time, so we want to do more. And that's where I see that, kind of a legacy that my wife and I would like to leave here. So yeah.
Wonderful, Obey. It's really amazing, and it's so touching to see that all that your parents and your family has done and continue to do. And I'm sure that in the coming years and during the rest of your life, there will be so many more moments where you will be creating impacts and changes for people around you.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, we hope that, yeah, we can make that change. We can help. Literally, Anurag, I'm sure you would have seen it up close as well. But, like, I've rolled up the sleeves and I've done certain things, and they can be life changing experiences for you.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And we all have our moments where we are impacted and moments where we create impact, sometimes knowingly and sometimes unknowingly. And I think all these are part of our human journey. So I totally get that. On that note, Obaid, thank you so much once again. I know that you're pressed for time and still you found time. And thank you for acknowledging Humans of Telecom as part of your journey as well. That is our pleasure and privilege to have that mentioned by you. And I do hope that in the coming months, I do get to cross paths with you and see you somewhere.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Wonderful. So thanks a lot, Ubaid. And to all our wonderful listeners here, thanks a lot for tuning into the show. We hope this episode gave you a good glimpse of the human side of Obaid Rahman, somebody who is an intrinsic auto guy, but now a telecom leader, someone who has passions around cigars and F1 racing, and someone who has also been held at gunpoint. And finally, a person who is continuing the legacy of bringing smiles on so many faces around him. That for us today, ladies and gentlemen, is Ubaid Rahman. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, do stay tuned in. because we shall soon be releasing yet another episode and another compelling story from the telecom space. And do follow the podcast on your preferred streaming channel. On behalf of Humans of Telecom, this is your host Anurag Aggarwal signing off for now. Take care.